All Blacks depth chart for 2021, folks. We've already done this for the Springboks, so if you kind of want the intro and you want to see how the Springboks did it, we'll put a thing up there for the Springboks one. But essentially, we're looking through the All Blacks players that played in 2021 to see how Fozzie distributed the minutes, where they are building depth, maybe where they're looking a bit indecisive. And yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts on how the All Blacks are lining up for 2022. Clearly, before I get to the actual graphs and whatnot, the All Blacks have taken a very, very different strategy than the Springboks have. If you saw the Springboks video, if you haven't, you should go watch it. But the Springboks have got clear front runners in many of their positions, and they've got consistent combinations that play together. That's obviously a good thing in terms of building that cohesion, but maybe it's a bit dangerous in terms of if you get one of those guys injured, you've just lost like 80% of the minutes that played in that position. So the next guy you bring in has been living off scraps or not really been playing at this test level at all. The All Blacks philosophy has been very, very different. They've played about the same amount of players. Like they've used 42. I think the Springboks was 41 if you don't include the South Africa A game against the British and Irish Lions. So the amount of players is about the same, but the amount of minutes the All Blacks guys dish out are a lot more to the fringe guys and a lot less to the front runners. So we'll go through it and you guys can let me know what you reckon, if this is the right strategy or if it is the wrong one. We'll start with the front rowers, most important players to start with. And you're looking at, I don't know, Loosehead. Bauer's there in green, Moody's there in blue, Tuinukuafe's there in yellow, and De Groot's there in purple. I can kind of understand this one pretty clearly. I think Moody is the favourite guy, despite the fact that he's in blue. But he was injured for much of the season, so he missed out where Bauer had to fill in, especially at the start of the season. So Bauer and Moody seem to be the front runners. Tuinukuafe is the established third choice guy, and then De Groot's the development guy. So maybe having the likes of a De Groot there is one area that we're not seeing from the Springboks, but we are seeing from the All Blacks. Is De Groot going to go to the World Cup? Will he replace one of the other guys in front of him at the moment? That's kind of a question. Should the All Blacks be focusing on the front running guys and leaving the development for after the next World Cup cycle? Don't know. That's kind of one question we'll need to look at. For tight head, Laulala is the clear favourite. He's had half the minutes overall, pretty much. Lomax, interestingly, who has been their kind of project player, is there in blue. He's second. And then Ta'avau's there in yellow, who's been a bit of a stand-in for a while. And then Tuangafasi has been a guy who's recovering from injury. He's there in purple. What the All Blacks haven't employed is the likes of an Inyakane who can kind of switch sides. They had to do that by necessity, the Springboks. Like they had an injury, so they replaced a tight head with a loose head. The All Blacks haven't done that, even though they have got guys who've played both sides before. So far, they're going kind of down the specialist route. Hooker, it's similar to Loosehead in that you've got the development guy, but the development guy gets more minutes than you would have thought. Taylor's there with the lion's share. He's there in green. But then the development guy, who's Tokiaho, is there in blue. And he's benefited from the likes of Coles, who's there in yellow, and Almua there in purple, being unavailable at times. Coles is getting on. He's had the old calf injury, and Almua has concussion issues from time to time. Not just concussion, but that's the most recent one I can think of. So their loss has been Tokiaho's game. He's certainly had a chance to step up, and the more he plays, the more he impresses. So that one, I think, is going to be one to watch going into 22. But either way, Taylor seems to be the front runner, and I don't think that's going to change in the short term anyway. So that's your front rowers. Locks, it's a bit more clear-cut. And it's maybe as clear-cut as any of the direct combos get, or it's pretty similar. Whitelock and Retallick. So Brodie's there in 4, and Whitelock's there in 5 in green. Those are your two front-running guys. Now, the locks tend to chop and change quite a bit. They don't seem to specialise. I know there is a difference, and having kind of bulky guy on tight head lock seems to be preferable, but to be honest, the guys chop and change locks a lot. So some of those guys up the top in like the brown and the purple and whatnot is guys chopping and changing between different positions. But main guys Brodie and Sam, and then second guys is Patrick Tupulotu and Scott Barrett. That's 4 and 5 in blue. Both those guys took time off to be with their families, so I think ordinarily their minutes would be a little bit bigger. And we've seen Scott Barrett, he's also the yellow guy there in 4, so he's got decent chunks, maybe a quarter of the minutes for one position, but he split it across 2, if that kind of makes sense. The development guy has been Tu'avai, who's there in yellow at 5, but also there in purple at 4. So he's seen a decent amount of game time despite being kind of down the pecking order behind some pretty established big guns. And then they've even taken an extra step to blood young Josh Lord, who's there in red at number 5, because they had Barrett and Tupulotu out at the same time when they went on their Northern Tour. So, yeah, the All Blacks have taken an extra step of blooding that one extra guy. Would they have done that had they had all their guys available at the same time? Maybe not. But I guess in terms of that situation, they needed an extra body, and at least they did reward him with some minutes. They didn't just kind of keep him around as a travelling squad member. He actually got some minutes. The back row is also a story of guys chopping and changing, and it's one where sometimes you wish you would just get a specialist in each position. But that's the classic argument, right? Do you play your best players no matter kind of what position they are in? Or do you play specialists in his position? Like Ardie Savea is clearly one of the All Blacks' best players, but he's not like a specialist number 8, right? Hoskins Sotutu is probably your specialist number 8. Even if I think he's played 6 before, but you know what I mean. So Ardie is there at 8. He's got the majority of the number 8 minutes, but it's also spread between Luke Jacobson and Hoskins Sotutu, plus like a bit of Frizzell and Akira Ioane popping in at the top. But yeah, those 3 guys mainly. But like Savea, Jacobson is also a bit of a jack of all trades, because whilst he's blue there at number 8, he is also yellow there at number 6. And Ardie, whilst he's green there at number 8, he's also yellow there at number 7. Yellow there at number 7. So, yeah, there's a bit of chopping and changing. Specialist, though, Akira Ioane, I mean, he did get token minutes at number 8 at one point, but 6, that's him with more than half the time. Akira Ioane, who's come along kind of leaps and bounds from the All Blacks, essentially saying he didn't have the work rate a couple of years ago, to getting the majority of the minutes at 6 for the All Blacks. And then Dalton Papali'i has stepped up in the absence of Sam Cane to get the majority of the minutes at 7. So Dalton has been a specialist for the All Blacks. They haven't deployed him anywhere else. Where they're not getting a specialist is the likes of Ethan Blackadder, who's a bit of a jack of all trades. He's there in blue for both 6 and 7. So he's maybe the perfect guy for a Rugby World Cup, because he's legit going to cover both positions. Now, you could argue you're better off having a genuine blockbusting, ball-carrying number 6 go and play 6 ahead of Ethan Blackadder. Or you could argue he can do a useful enough job whatever position he plays. It's kind of just whatever strategy you think kind of works best. Frizzell's there at number 6 in purple, so he's had a little bit of time. Sam Cane is there at 7 in purple. He's had really limited chances given his injuries. Have kind of kept him out, but he did get back into the team towards the end of the year. How much game time he gets in 2022, surely it's a lot more than 2021, as long as he can stay fit. But yeah, if there's one thing about being out, it certainly gives the chance for somebody else to step up, and certainly Dalton Papali'i's been impressive at 7. So yeah, the All Blacks have got a lot of different minutes with a lot of different guys. As I mentioned, Ardie Savea jumps between 2, Ethan jumps between 2, Luke Jacobson jumps between 2, Hoskins is more of a specialist, Dalton's more of a specialist, Akira for the most part is a specialist, Sam Cane's a specialist, Frizzell when he's played, which is not that much, has been a bit of a specialist. So yeah, it is. It's a bit of a mixed bag. So for the forwards overall, Brodie Retallick has been your mainstay. He's had more minutes than anybody else. Nepo Lalala's up there. Akira Ioane's up there. All the other guys have kind of had less than half the minutes overall in their position. So it's been split between multiple guys. For the backs, the splitting in some positions gets pretty. Yeah, it's pretty excessive, and in other positions it's a bit more consistent. Halfback is the one. Halfback is the one where there is legit nobody who has stepped up and been the number 1 guy. And that's, again, it's partly off the field stuff, but just look at the breakdown. TJ is there with about a third of the minutes there as the number 1 guy who's played 9 for the All Blacks this year. Aaron Smith, who probably would have been the number 1 guy, but remember he took some time off to be with his family. He's there in blue. So I think in normal circumstances, Aaron probably gets a lot more minutes there. But it didn't happen this year. Then you got Brad Weber there in yellow, and he's been the All Blacks' third choice guy for a while. He's living off just under a quarter of the minutes. And then Finlay Christie has been the development guy there in purple. Now, it's another one of those ones. Do the All Blacks in 2022 need to make a decision about who are their first three, or do they keep dividing the minutes between four guys? That's going to be a pretty interesting one. I know TJ has been copping a fair bit of stick. Do they need to kind of move away from him and develop someone else? Or is Brad Weber going to lose that kind of third place spot to the likes of Finlay Christie? We'll kind of have to wait and see. But halfback is certainly one where it's the least clear about who's in what position, but we all just assume that Aaron is the guy. And then they'll kind of work from there as long as he's available. 10 is one where it's a battle between two guys, Richie and Bodie. They've been battling it out for ages. Bodie's there in green, Richie's there in blue, but it's virtually an even split. Richie maybe left that door open a little bit for Bodie by taking a bit of time off to be with his family, and Bodie's kind of stepped up well. So that debate about who starts at 10 for New Zealand will go on, but there doesn't seem to be a first choice guy. It's two first choices. That can be a problem in terms of building relationships, right? I know Bodie plays with TJ. That should be pretty familiar because they played together a million times at the Canes. But yeah, you chop and change. It is kind of hard to get that continuity. D-Mac is there, Damian McKenzie in yellow. So he's the third choice guy. He's living off very little minutes, the odd bit of substitute minutes here and there. But yeah, not a lot of game time for him at 10. I think he's going to be 23 basically going forward, but we'll see. 12 and 13 is one of the kind of more stable areas, interestingly. David Havili is there as your main guy at 12. I do feel like he's going to be under threat by the guy who's in blue, and that's Quinn Tupaia. Quinn Tupaia might be the answer to the All Blacks 12 question going forward, but he's only just come onto the scene. Maybe it's a bit too early to tell, but I see a fair bit of promise in him. Havili, I'm still not sold on. I know he had a cracking campaign for the Crusaders, so they rewarded him. They rewarded him with, I think, more minutes than anybody else in one position. So he got the most time out of anyone at 12. Is he the guy who is the answer to the All Blacks 12 question? Different player from Quinn, for sure. Very good playmaker, although through the odd intercept pass. But yeah, Quinn's a big physical unit, isn't he? And sometimes you just like having a big block-busting ball carrier at 12. ALB's also played a little bit of 12. He's there in yellow. Rico there at 13 has divided his time with the wing as well, but he's still your leading guy at 13 with ALB coming in second. Remember, there's been no Goodhue this year due to injury, and ALB spent much of the time on the sidelines as well. So Rico kind of got his chance at 13, and I think he took it pretty well. It doesn't hurt that he got a fair bit of his gas back. It seems like whatever leg injury he was carrying last year has been fully recovered from, because he was lightning this year. It's just defensively that is still, like, some games he's good, and there's some games not really that kind of present. But yeah, we'll kind of see how he can go. If the All Blacks are going to invest more minutes into him, he will only improve. And then Enor has been there a little bit at 13 as well. He's there in yellow. It's not really been Enor's year. He's another guy who needs an injury-free run, but when he's got his time, it's hard to say, seeing such little time he's had, but he's not exactly kind of put in the kind of block-busting performances that gives you a second week in a row to get a start. Outside backs is a bit of an interesting one as well, because you can see 11 is George Bridge. He's had the most minutes of anybody at specialist kind of left wing, but Sevu Reece, who is there in yellow on the left wing, is also there in blue on the right wing. So he's been kind of pretty evenly split. He's had more minutes than George Bridge overall, but he's split his time between both wings. George has pretty much been specialised on the left. Rico's there in blue, so he's spent Rico's got a lot of game time this year. Probably more than anybody else, I would say, kind of if you add both of those up together. Enor's spent the odd minute on the wing alongside D-Mac as well. But yeah, left wing is George Bridge. But that being said, I think towards the end of the season we saw, I think Bridge started against Italy. I feel like Bridge is starting in the games which they're maybe not targeting as much, but I could be mistaken. But yeah, I think that game against South Africa where Bridge struggled under the high ball may have been, I don't know if it's going to say curtains for him as the starting left wing. I'm not sure. Will Jordan, though, is there on the right wing. He's gotten a heap of minutes on right wing and he's looked electric. That spot's pretty much his at the moment. He divides it between him and Severus, who's there in blue. Everyone else has just kind of been fill-in for token minutes. It's pretty much Will Jordan and Severus. Yeah. Fullback is a battle between two guys, even more so than first five, and it's Jordie Barrett who's there in green and D-Mac who's there in blue. And I think that position's Jordie Barrett's for the most part. I think key games, it's going to be Jordie, but you do need to keep playing somebody else in case Jordie goes down, and in this case it's been D-Mac. Bodie Barrett is that little small yellow sliver, but he seems to not be a fullback anymore, which I know is what he wanted, because he looked at the fullbacks that New Zealand have got and said, I don't want to be playing with those guys because those guys are all better than me at fullback. So, yeah. Across the team, you can certainly see there's not a heap of super front runners. There's decent guys who have gotten more than half the minutes. The likes of Havili, the likes of Will Jordan, to a lesser extent Brodie Retallick, Jordie Barrett. But then there's other positions where the front runner has gotten less than half the game time. With the front rowers, you kind of expect that because they don't tend to play any 80-minute performances. They're going to get subbed at some point. But 7's been a bit of a mix. 8's been a bit of a mix. 9 has certainly been a mix. Even left wing has been a bit of a mix. So it's a very different strategy. I think for the South Africans, of all the minutes, 63%, I think it was, were their starters. Their starting 15 played 63% of the overall minutes the whole season. Whereas the All Blacks, it's like 49%. So just the end of the day here is rotation. It is rotation. Is it too much rotation? Or is the depth built across this year going to pay dividends in 2023? That's the main story, isn't it? That's the $1 million question. The most played 15 this year would be Bauer, Taylor, Lalala, Brodie and Whitelock, Akira, Dalton and Adi. That's your forward pack. And then TJ Bodie is the main combo, 9-10. Havili, Rico, like I mentioned, 12-13. Bridge left wing, Jordan right wing, and then Jordie Barrett at 15. But as I mentioned, Severus overall has played more minutes than Bridge. He's just divided his time between the two wings. So what changes do we need for 2022? Maybe it's time to specialise a touch. But as always, it's going to be dependent on injuries, and it's going to be dependent on if guys are wanting to take time off for their families. The COVID thing has seen more of that, I think, than we've ever seen before. Guys not willing to travel overseas and then spend, because New Zealand's still got 2 weeks quarantine when you return. Guys not willing to spend the 2 weeks quarantine. That will be a different story next year, because New Zealand's kind of relaxing those laws. So we may see fewer guys take time off for family time, because they'll be able to go straight back to their family, or more or less straight back to their family when they get back from overseas. So, yeah. What do you guys reckon? Do you think the All Blacks not specialising is going to be a problem? The likes of Adi shifting between two, Ethan Blackadder, Severus jumping from wing to wing? Or do you think, coming to a World Cup time, having guys who've played multiple positions like Luke Jacobson is going to be a positive rather than a negative? There's certainly no right way to do it, and New Zealand coaches like Graham Henry's tried it one way, rotation and rest, and then John Mitchell used to have pretty much his solid starting side that he played week in, week out. But yeah, what do you guys reckon? What changes would you like to see for 2022? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.